Yeah, group number 5 did their presentation, group number 4 did their presentation, group 3 did their presentation, and group 2 and 1 did their presentation. Now I kindly request group number 6 to do their presentation before we get into the practical with group number 4 presenting. So he is presenting for group number 6. Who is presenting for group number 6? You guys, you always want me to check for you while we are there. I'm actually recording the lecture. Right, so tomorrow, Sunday, you have Mr. Chinofunga, I think from 2 p.m. till you finish. I don't think he's going to take you for the rest of the day from 2. So just be prepared to have him tomorrow. I may attend the lecture if I will be available, but tomorrow is his day. Today it's so unfortunate that our own platform is misbehaving, and that's why we moved to this platform. So let me just find the file. Right, so I'm expecting to see a presentation or to attend to group number 6 presentation where I have Chinkani, Shure, Sirora, Morolezi, Chazolida. I don't know who is starting the presentation from this group. I don't know who is starting the presentation from this group. Do I have anyone from group number 6? Anyone from group number 6? If we do not have anyone from group number 6, then we can have our practical from group number 4. And who is supposed to present for group number 4? Is it Watson? Group number 4 is only 4 people. Who is presenting for group number 4?
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, Yasha.
Okay, let me check with the other colleague who's supposed to do the introduction before the practical.
Okay. The introduction, which introduction? You have,
Just the just the
yeah.
definition of the SQL, the uses, and the commands that we have before we start doing the practical.
Oh, okay. That's fine. So do so in a few seconds to go.
Hi, Nyasha.
Hello, alright, you've joined the swing.
Okay. So should I start from the initial definitions?
It's okay.
Are you able to present so that I can just use your screen?
How do I present?
Right. There is a button which is number 1, 2, 3, 4, counting one, the microphone button, the one with an upward arrow. Click on that one so that you start your presentation. Did you see the button that I'm talking about? Hello? Hello? Nyasha, are you there?
Yes, I'm in.
Okay, you are trying to share your presentation with us, right?
Okay, let me try to show mine. Okay, show the entire screen. Okay, let me. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, on my side, I'm seeing it.
Okay. Thanks, Nyasha. I can now see.
Okay, let me maximize the screen.
Okay.
Okay, you can
Okay.
start.
So, okay. A pleasant afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So with SQL, this is structured query language, and we can consider it as a programming language, which is mainly used to manage databases and perform operations on the data. So from the definition, we have introduced the point of relational database, and maybe you may want to know what it is. So relationship database systems, they are mainly focused on data elements which are stored and having links between those different data sets. So the links are used to manage and reference these data items. And in relational database systems, we usually group data in columns and rows. So they follow a particular, can I say, a particular defined structure. So mainly in these databases, we have tables which we define, and in these tables, that's where you find the rows and columns which I was referencing to. And ideally, the columns are created in such a way such that each column holds a particular data set or data type, data that is of the same data type. So each row would thereby be representing a particular item or a particular, let's say, if it's a person or a particular student in that database. You can move on to the next slide. Okay, so now we move on to the uses of SQL. So the main uses of SQL are creating databases and are also creating the database tables. At the same time, it can be used to modify the database tables and also used to define the structure of the tables which we will have created. Also, there is adding, updating, and deleting of rows. So this is mainly the data manipulation part. We can also use SQL to retrieve the information within the database systems. So on retrieval, there are methods of retrieval which we will look at later as we move on. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, so now we want to look at the SQL commands. So the SQL commands are the actual, let's say the actual syntax which we use to interact with our data, with our database and the data in those data tables. So it is actually, they are actually unique, if I can say, reserved words which are used for us to interact with this data. So maybe we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so these commands are mainly classified into the groups listed. So we have DDL, which is data definition language. So by data definition language, this is whereby we create, delete or alter our database tables. Then we also have data query language. So on query, that is whereby we are actually retrieving information from the table. So we move on to DML, which is data manipulation language. With data manipulation language, this is whereby we are applying changes to the data which is in our database. And these commands which are classified under DML are not auto-committed. Then this means that they are not permanently saved, like they are not permanently affecting the data which we have, and we can also roll back from that data operation. Then we now have our data control language, which are mainly the statements for security and concurrent access. So mainly this is in defining rights to access the data. Then we now have TCL, which is transactional control language. So these ones are used in combination mainly with the commands of insert, delete, and update, which we have said. Okay, it's fine. So here we have a table which now lists the commands which are found under each, can I say, category. From DDL, we have create, drop out, and truncate. Then maybe if we look at DML, we also have insert, update, and delete. So I can safely say the most commonly used ones are under DDL, DML, and DQL. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so now we move on to the particular DDL commands. There's a definition I won't repeat. Let's move on. Okay, so here we are now looking at the create statement. So in this case, we have an example of creating a database. So you simply say create database and then you write the database name. You write it not in those parentheses, but we are just trying to give focus that it will be one word. You are not supposed to use space. You can use underscore to join words or letters which you have there. So a very good example is given there, which says create database bank account. You can see that it's bank underscore account. And one thing to note is that the language is not case sensitive. So you can choose to use uppercase, lowercase, it won't matter. And then after your query, you can see that there is a termination there with a full colon. So I won't dwell much on that. Let's move on. So there's another way of creating a database, but a table, I mean. But this time, you are now creating the table and at the same time defining the columns in that table. So here in this example, we have create table. The table is called personal details, and apologies there, it's supposed to be personal underscore details. Then we have the unique identifier, which we have said is ID, and data type int with 11, let's say 11 characters or 11 digits. Okay. So now we also have national ID, which is shortened there, which is a variable character with 16 characters there. We also have first name, which is now 64 characters. So I think we will get further into this when we do the practical. Let's move on. Okay, so now we are looking at the outer command. So the syntax is given as outer table, and then you give the table name which you want to outer. So you're now saying outer table personal details add check age, which is what, greater than 16. So maybe this will be I think we'll go deeper into this when we actually do the tutorial, but for now maybe you can just follow through for this basic syntax. Okay, so we are dropping a table here, and by drop we can literally take it as drop. When you drop something, let's say you drop and lose it, so we are actually deleting that table. So you can say drop table and you give the table name. So the given example is drop table loans, whereby you are dropping all your loans, you are defaulting on all your loans. We can move on to the next slide. Okay, so by truncated, when you truncate, you are clearing all the records from the table. Basically, you are not deleting the table, you are not dropping the table, but you are clearing the table. So the syntax is simply truncate table, and then you give the table name, then you also put a full colon. You can move on. Okay, so moving on to DML. So on DML, we have the insert command. So insert can be used to insert one record or maybe multiple records. And with insert there, you say insert into, you actually specify that you are inserting into the table, which you give the table name. And you now specify probably the column which you are inserting into and the values. So on the syntax, we are saying column slash columns because you give the columns as an array and you also pass the values as an array, if I can put across like that. So the given example there is we are inserting into the personal details database. We are putting in the national ID, the first name, the middle name, surname, age, gender, phone number, email. And then you find that where we have the values, we should have corresponding values for each of those columns. If there is a null value on that particular column, at least we should represent it. And even if it's not a value, but we show that it's null by using those quotations and not put anything. So here you can see that we have put in all the fields that are there which correspond exactly to the column names which are given. So we are putting in actually two rows or two sets of data there. One is for Nyasha, the second one is for Tanaka. So after running this command, we now expect our table to have those two rows populated. We can move on. Okay. So we also have the select statement, which is used to retrieve data from our table. So the example given, you can select and define the columns which you want to be returned by the query, and also say from this particular table, conditions which you want to be followed. So from the example there, we are saying select star from loans where outstanding balance is greater than 10,000. Okay, so maybe let me just break it down to say if you are running the first statement to say select star from loans, that would retain everything from that particular table, the table which is referred to as loans. Then if you are putting the where command, if you are putting the where statement, you are now giving a condition to say we want where we only have outstanding balances greater than 10,000. We can move on if there are no questions. Okay, so we now have the update command. So on updating, this is whereby we are changing we are changing one or more of the given data in the table or rows in the table. So now with this one, you say update, then you give the table name which you want to update, and now you are saying you want to set a particular value for the given column name, and then give the condition to say how do you then identify the do we identify the row where we are supposed to do this operation. So in the given example, we are saying we are updating the personal details table, and we want to set the surname to Tapfumane for that particular row where the national ID is the one with 11, and then a bunch of ones there. I don't know if you are following. So we're now defining that on this particular table, look for where the national ID is the one which is given with 11/111A11. And then now we set the surname to Tafumane. We are not even considering what was the previous value. We are overwriting what was given before. So we can move on. Hi, Nyasha.
Hi, I have moved on. We're not on delete.
Oh, okay, sorry. So the delete command, it removes one or more records from the table according to the specified conditions. So we say delete from the table name, and then we give the conditions. So when we delete the whole row from the table. You cannot delete, you cannot only delete the national ID and leave the other values of that row. Maybe you can modify the national ID, but you cannot delete it on its own. So now we are saying delete from personal details where the national ID is 11/111A11. So this will delete that entry from our table. We can move on. Okay, so we now have the data control language. So this one gives commands for user rights or user privileges to the database. So we have grant and revoke. So I think in plain English, when you are granting, you are giving access, and then when you are revoking, you are also withdrawing the rights or the privilege, the user rights or user privileges. So the syntax for grant, you specify, like say grant, then privilege name on object, then to the specific user, also the particular role which you are giving that user. So you're saying you have to like have your username and the role which you want to grant to that username. Maybe we'll demonstrate it more clearly in the practical. You can move on. Okay, so on this one, we have questions whereby you are supposed to write a query that extracts a customer with an outstanding loan balance greater than 10,000. Unfortunately, I don't know how we can do this, but we would have loved to do it as an interactive session whereby someone can try and give us that particular case. So since now you cannot get all the account details from here, I don't know, Nyash, can we put this as part of the practical?
All right, it's okay. We explain better when doing the practical so that they can put it.
Okay, it's fine. So thank you guys. That was my presentation. I don't know if there are questions before we move on to the practical. If there are no questions, Yasha, you can take over.
Once we are done.
Alright, that's okay. So, okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Vanessa.
Okay, so we've got many database softwares. So I've got the Interbase, Microsoft SQL, MySQL, Workbench, Post. This one I can't pronounce it. Then we've got the one named MongoDB and Cassava. But in our case, we're gonna use the MySQL Workbench since it has more greater strength in data warehouse. Okay, so I hope many have got the access to. You found the link to download the Workbench in the tutorials that you gave us. Okay, so let me try to open mine so that you can start to do it. Workbench. Okay, let me stop sharing. Okay, can you now see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Output. Okay, so you just type in where the search button, say the search button on your PC, and then type in Workbench. And then once you type in Workbench, you open as an administrator, and then this page will appear. And then you go on local instance MySQL, and then this page shows. And then you just go on schemas, and then sorry, it's written query one. That's the worksheet that we're gonna use. Okay, so I'll start by demonstrating on how to create a database. So I'm gonna use an example of bank account we have been using. So in creating database, like we said, we start by using the DDL commands. So on DDL, we've got the one that says create. So as shown before, we use the create option, the create command. So you just write create database, then you write bank account, and then you close using that one, not sure the name of it. So it's not case sensitive, so even if you choose capital letters or so, it will still save. So this is just how you create, and then you run. You just go over on this thing that looks like a lightning, and then you just say execute. So below here is like where after execution, this is where we see if our rows have been affected. So in this case, database, create database account, it has been affected. So we now have got data, we now have bank account as a database in our system. So in a case whereby we've got many database in our system, we don't only have this one, so you are not sure of the name if it already exists or not, so you write if not exist, if not exist bank account, like this. So it will create the database under the name bank account only if the database name does not exist. If it exists, it will then show an error saying it already exists in red. The error will be in red. So in this case, it's a warning that this database already exists before, so we can now proceed. I'm just doing this for demonstration's sake, but in an initial setup you just create once. Okay, so that's how you create your database. So we move on to creating tables. So in creating table, we just write create table and then the table name. So for our example, we've got table names, we've got the personal details where we're going to put the KYC for our clients, and we've got the account details which contains the account numbers, the bank balance, and we've got the loans which shows the loans that a person has. So I'm going to start with the personal details. So firstly, we're going to create the table personal detail underscore detail. So we're not allowed to put spaces, that's why we put in underscore, so that we can read it clearly, because if we just write it as one word, at times we might fail to read what was written. So we use an underscore to separate our words. So create personal details, and then we want to see if it was created. You just go again and then you execute. Okay, so if there is an error, it will show like below. Let me just put this here. Okay, so in our case, no database selected. What? Okay, let me try to show you the error. If you got an error while this you're trying to execute, this is how you see it, to see if whatever is affected has been executed properly.
Hi, Nyasha.
Hello. Okay, so in that case, okay.
You can specify the database bank account. Say bank account dot personal details.
Okay. But not using underscore. It's okay. It's okay if it's like this. Okay. So I forgot something. So when you're writing your table, you also have to specify the attributes that you're gonna put in your table. So the attributes, these are like the columns in your table. So in our case, for the personal details, we're gonna use our attributes like national ID, the first name, the middle name, last name, age, gender, phone, and the email. So let me just write it down, or probably I'd put it down. So let me just paste for time purpose. Okay, alright, that's fine. Let me write. So the first one, we've got the national ID. Okay, so before I finish off, let me just explain this. So in defining our attributes, we also have to define the data type. So as Agatha Groups have explained it, data types, these are like the values that you're going to allow to be entered in those columns. So for data types, we've got different types of data types. We've got the numeric data types. So on numeric data types, we've got the integers, the float, the double, for examples, and then we've got the date and time data type, and we also have the character and the string. So on character, we've got char, var, and we've got the text. So it just depends on the values that you want to be inputted in those columns. So in our case, the national ID. So a national ID, it contains both the numeric and letters. So we're going to use the VACA as our data type. And also you also have to specify on the length of the data that is going to be allowed in each of the attribute or each of the entity. So in our case, the national ID VACA, let's just use 64 since some might be long, so you just leave the room. Okay, so the first one, I think we're done. And we go on to the next one, which is the first name. So first name, these are, so let's just use Vaka for it. These are more like strings. So at times maybe some people's names maybe might have even letters or so. So just to avoid some confusion, let's just use Vaka so that everything is allowed. I'm gonna use let me just use a bigger value because some names are quite longer. So maybe let's use 250. Okay, so the middle name, some might have a middle name. I'm choosing Vaka again, 250. And then we go on to the age. So age is a number, so we're gonna use the integer. So pick int. I just write 16 or 11. As a number, there's no one with
Hello.
like a big number on age. It's either 2 or 3 digits. Okay, so after the age, we're gonna name the gender, and I'm gonna use Vakara. But don't forget to put a comma after every attribute you would have, after every object you have added. Then we've got the phone number. So let me just write phone. So I don't know. And lastly, the email. Direct sending. No. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I forgot to write the surname here.
I am.
Nada.
Please help us understand the errors that you are facing so that if we face them, we will be able to solve them.
Okay. Okay, so when you forget to put a comma, like let's say for this instance, when you remove that comma, it will highlight a, like on the 10th one, that there's something that's missing. It won't go like on the next row to just check on the next row because it's assuming this one is still open. So when you put a comma, you're like separating each object. So in this case, we move on to the next one, and okay, so these are all my objects that we're gonna use. So to close, you have to put a closing bracket, and then okay, let me put this so that I avoid too much spacing. Okay, so when you're done, you put this closing semicolon. Wait, semicolon. Okay, so I'm done creating my table personal details. But before you, like you say you're done, you have to define some keys in your table. For instance, okay, let me just, okay, keys have been mentioned before by other groups, but let me just go through on the keys, on the type of keys that we have. So we've got the super keys. Like super keys, these are like every every attribute in our table, it can be a super key, because it can be used to identify that column. But for them to for us to uniquely find an object, we use what we call the primary key. So the primary key, it will be like the, okay, let me find the definition of primary key. Okay, primary key is the most appropriate. It is the one that is used to reference the table. So in our case, our primary key is going to be the national ID. So national ID is the one that's going to uniquely identify each object in the personal detail. So you just write primary key like this. Okay, so we move on to the other one. It's called the candidate key. So candidate key, these are other keys that can be used to identify my objects in our table. For example, we've got the phone number. It's a unique. Then email, it's unique for each individual. We can't use first name or even last name, since people might have the same name or the last name, so it will be difficult to really find the one we are looking for. So it's either you use the national ID, the phone number, or the email. So out of those three, you have to find the one that's best to use as your primary key. So in our case, we have chosen the national ID to make it the primary key, and you're left with the phone number and the email. So you just write unique to make them like unique characters. So you are not allowed to enter another phone number you have entered for that particular person. Only one phone number for each person, and also one email for each person. So the national ID is also unique. You also have to write unique name. Okay, and then we move also to, I think these are the most common keys that you have, and we also have the foreign key. So in our case, this is the first table. So we are not going to use the foreign key. We use it on another table. So I'm going to explain it when I will be using it on another table. And let me talk about my constraints. So we've got different types of constraints. For example, the not now. On not now, we're saying these values, you're not allowed. It's like when one is entering the values of a particular person, you're not allowed to leave a space. You're not allowed to leave it empty. You have to fill it for the details to fully execute, or for details to fully save. So, and we've got the default. So default, you set a default also. So a default will say if you don't write anything, what's the default that is going to be represented on that. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate. Firstly, I'm going to demonstrate on not now. So the primary key, which is the reference for each unique character, it should have a value. You are not allowed to leave it empty. So you also write not now, meaning to say you have to write it. You have to write something. So on everything here, we just going to put not now, since we need these values to capture a person's details. Not now. So on middle name, it's subjective. Some people, I'm not saying subjective. Some people have got the middle names and some don't have. So it's not really mandated. So you can just omit it. It's not mandated for one to have a middle name. So on surname, we need it for our records. So you also write not now. Age, we need it for our records. You also write not now. Gender, we want it for statistic purposes. Not now. phone number, it's unique, so definitely you have to have a value there. Not now. And lastly, the email, not now. Okay, so I've left the middle name. Okay, so on this one, on the middle name, we can just put a default. Instead of just leaving it blank, we can just write, okay, for it to be read as a blank, we have to put a default, that a default is 0 or default is blank. So a space, it's actually the system read it as a blank, so we have to write it down so that when you're writing your values, space will is leaving it blank will actually be read as a default. So you write default and then you open this and then you close, and if you just put a blank space here, but this is just how you write the default. What's wrong with this one? Unique. Okay, let me try to execute those so that I can read the error.
Hi, Nyasha.
Hello.
Look at where you put your comma. You're supposed to put it at the end.
And okay, at the end after I've written this. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I had deleted unique here.
Alright, and then unique, when the moment you say primary key is by
It
default.
defines everything, so there's no need really to write unique and not now.
Yes, you can still write, but you are repeating.
It's just a repetition. By primary key to mean everything. Okay. Okay, let me just remove this commas. Okay, so I can now finally execute. Okay, since I've executed already, let me write if not exist on this table, since it might exist. If not exist. Database.
Hi, Nyasha.
Hello.
Can you try that? Use database bank account, or maybe where you create it, say bank account to personal details.
On the table name.
Maybe now you should specify that we are using that database bank account.
Use. Okay, I didn't say use. Sorry. It's use bank account DB, like this, right?
Use database bank account.
Not DB.
Yeah, use database bank account.
Okay, so we've finally created the table. So in order to see if your table is created, you just go here on the left where it's written schemas, and then you click on these two arrows, and then you just say refresh. So it will show the bank account. So this is the database I've created. And if you go on tables and click on the arrow, you see the personal details table there. And if you click it on the bottom corner here, it will show all the attributes I have written. So the underlined one is the primary key, the phone number and the email. These are candidate keys, the unique, the candidate keys I have written there. So I move on creating another table, the bank account table, the bank details one. So I say create bank details. Okay, let me just do like this. So you open the bracket and then you start to write your attributes on bank details. So on bank details, I have, okay, account details, not bank details.
Sorry, Nyasha.
Yes.
I got an error from my end, and it's reading a table must have at least one visible column. I'm not
After
sure
you
where.
try to execute for the table.
Yes.
Anyone to assist? Maybe we've got that error before.
Maybe you should specify one column for the database.
Did you understand? I'm not sure.
I did not.
All right. What's the error again?
A table must have at least one visible column.
All right. You said create table if not exist personal details, right?
I said create table personal details.
Create table personal details. And then can you continue to read the SQL statement?
Yeah, open brackets, national ID, VACA 64 primary key, comma, FNAME VACA 250 not now, comma, middle name VACA 250 default, opening quote, space, closing quote, comma, SNAME VACA 250 not now, comma, age int 11 not now, comma, gender VACA 60 not now, comma.
All right.
Phone
Sorry, my brother. Can you paste your SQL query so that we can play around with it?
All right.
Or maybe I can stop sharing mine and you share yours
No,
so
you
that
you proceed. You proceed.
okay, it's fine. Okay, so we were now creating table, another table. We're now creating table name, right? It's bank, it's account details, this one.
All right. On that query, Mr. Regis, can you observe that you said create table personal details and then you put a semicolon there? You must remove that
Yes.
semicolon.
All right.
Yeah, you can proceed, Nyasha.
Okay, so right now I'm creating a table name account details. So on account details, I have attributes like the account number, the national ID, and their bank balance. So I'm on account number. So account number, data type, I'm going to use the varchar. As it depends, it might have also, it might be alphanumeric. So varchar, let me just say 64 characters. And the national ID, the niche ID, okay, the national ID varchar 64. And lastly, the balance. The balance is in an integer, this one, and the alphanumeric. So balance, let me just write maybe 120. So before I execute my table, also have to ask myself, did I write the primary key, like what's going to reference the table? The second one, is there any foreign keys in my table? Like, is there any relationship of the table with other tables in our database? So for this instance, our primary key is going to be the account number. So you just write primary number here, primary key, primary key. And foreign key, we've got the national ID. National ID is also found in the table personal details. So there's a relationship between our table. It's going to link the national ID and the account number. So in order to declare for a foreign key, there are actually two ways. It's either you might write foreign key here, like what we have been doing with the primary key, or you can write it below like this. You write foreign key, and then you open bracket and you write national ID, close bracket, then references. That's references or reference. Like it's coming from the personal details column, the personal details table. So in personal details, it's also written as the national. It's also the net ID. You close bracket, and then since there's a relationship between this table, let's say one wants to delete in account details. So since it's referencing to the other table, you cannot delete a record from this one without having to affect the personal details table. So you write and delete cascade. So if you want to delete, you first have to go to the primary table, which is the personal details table, and then you delete from there. I'll explain it when I'm not using the query. Okay, so I think that's basically it on our table. So comma, yeah, these are all the details that you want. Why am I getting an error? Okay, it's because I left a comma in.
Oh, okay, it's fine.
Okay. And I have to remove this comma. The last record, you don't have to put a comma. You just put the bracket and the semicolon like that, and then you save. So let me also write if not exist here, since I'm going to keep on executing. All right, what was the name?
Just undo. Control Z. Okay.
Control Z.
Yes.
Control Z.
Control Z. It's not working.
It's not working. Okay, let me just type again. It was account details. So I'm now executing. So you check here. It is executed well. And then we move on to the last table.
All right.
Create
What's that
table.
one? Can you read that warning for us?
What?
About the integer, that warning that we are having there.
Sorry, I'm not getting you.
There is a warning which is saying integer display with what?
Integer display width is deprecated and will be removed in a future release.
Okay, remind me once you're done so that I can say something about that one.
Alright. Okay, so our last column will be on loans. So open bracket. So on loans we've got the, let me check on the attributes we're going to use. You've got the ID, the account number, amount borrowed, interest, and the outstanding balance. Okay. So ID is like our loan ID. Right, let me just write in full loan ID. Okay. Okay. So our loan ID is the one that's going to. Okay. Our loan ID is the one that's going to act as our primary key in this table. So let me just write 120 as the link and primary key. Okay, so in this case, the loan ID, we're not going to punch it. It's going to be auto incremented by our system. So it's like you don't know the number when someone asks for a loan. So our system is the one that's going to give each loan that you're going to enter a unique number. So you just write auto increment here. So the system will auto generate this number. And then we move on to the account number. The account number, defined it as VACA on top, with 64. So it's our primary key in this table. We've got the amount being borrowed by an individual. So we don't got amount borrowed. It's an integer. Let's say 120. And we've got the interest that has been charged so far on that particular loan. So it's going also to be an integer. And lastly, the outstanding balance. Outstanding balance, we define it as int also. Okay, so the amount borrowed is going, since it's under loan, so obviously it can be not now, it can be a now value. Then the interest, let's just put it on default, since it might be a new loan, so it might have a zero balance. So let's just put a default of 0 here. and then the outstanding balance. Let's put a default also, it because someone might have paid up, so it might have zero, right? So default 0 also. Okay, so before I close, I have to write my foreign key, which is going to link this table with other tables.
Alright, sorry Nyasha.
Yes.
I want you to edit that query statement before you run it. So tell me once you are done before you run it.
Alright, that's okay. So the foreign key for this one is the account number. So the account number is from the table account details. So account details. It's also written as account number. And then also on cascade, on delete cascade, you cannot just delete a record without having to affect the other tables. Delete cascade. That's my error there.
Alright, you are saying account.
Okay.
You are saying account details. There's a
Yes.
space.
It's like the account.
No. It's you're saying references, right?
The account.
Just after references.
Account details.
Remove that underscore. Put a space there. Put a space where. Oh, you got it right.
Account details and open bracket. This one. Okay. Yeah, it's now making. Yeah, I'm done.
Right. I want you to remove the brackets just after the int, after every int.
Should I execute?
No. No. Don't execute it. Remove the brackets after int.
After int.
Yes.
On this one.
Yes, and the value that is inside the brackets.
So I should remove everything.
Yes, remove the width there. On that int again, do the same. Wherever there's an int, do the same.
Right. Writing an int, you don't specify the value, the length.
Yeah, you don't have to specify because specifying a data type is specifying the the storage amount that is required for that attribute. So for an int, it's by default known and it cannot be exceeded, or it cannot be no one can exceed once we have it as an int. So try to run it and check if we're going to have another warning as warning 18.
Okay, let me check. Incorrect column specifier for loan ID.
Right, that's not
auto increment. So I'm not supposed to write auto increment. I'm not sure. Code 1063.
right. Just remove the space before the loan there, and then
The space before
the term loan ID.
here. Okay, like this.
Right, you are saying auto increment to a varchar, and that's not possible.
It increments to an int.
Yes.
So I should actually remove this and just write int.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the rest have been affected.
Right.
So let me refresh to see if all my tables appear. Okay, so the loans table is there, but it's not showing anything. Oh, columns. What's going on?
Double click on columns. Right. Double click on columns. Nothing is there.
Nothing. It's not
It's
showing my
bank
column.
account. Where is bank account? Did we create bank account?
Yes.
Where is the
Not bank
query?
account. It's okay. I don't know why I've got many loans though. But this one, these are the loans, the attributes, and for the personal details and for the account details. Yeah. Okay, so I'm done using the create function. I was just showing you how to use the create command. So now I'm using the DDL commands. So the first one was create. So the next one is drop. Or let me just start with outer. Yeah. So for outer, as the syntax goes, you just write outer table and then you specify the column name where you want to alter. So you just write outer table. So let's just alter our table for the first one, personal details table. We want to
Alright.
alter the edge.
Sorry, can you scroll down to loans? Loans query. Remove that loan which is causing an error there on line 23.
This one.
On line 23. Remove the loans which is there.
Oh, this.
Remember, some people are copying what you're doing, so they may copy it as it is and then you have the errors.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I'm on alter. So it's alter table. So I'm going to alter the first table, personal details. So on personal details, I'm going to alter the age. So I want it for the loan officer when he'll be entering the details of, when you be entering the accounts, the personal details for client, a 16 and above are only allowed to open the bank account. So you just write add, then you use the check option to check if the person is age is greater than the one that you would have written. So this is a condition. You can write anything to alter your table. So I'm just using an example of a check. So I'm just saying age should be greater than 16 years. And then I close my bracket and then I put my semicolon. And then I execute this. So when you're now entering the object or the tuples, if one is below 16, the record will not successfully be entered. It will produce an error. So, because we have put a checker in, and yeah, that's on outer. And then we'll go and drop. So on drop, it's like you are dropping the whole column, like you are deleting the whole column. So the whole
Stop
column
lying.
or the whole table.
Stop lying.
the table. You're dropping the whole table.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I used the wrong terms. So on drop, you just write drop, then the table name you want to drop. So I'm just going to use like drop loans, but I'm going to reload the loans again for demonstration's sake. I'll just drop and then I'll recreate. So you just say drop, the table name is loan. It's loans or loans. And then semicolon. Why it's acting funny?
You need to specify something there. I'm not going to tell you, but you have to specify something.
Drop table loans.
Yeah.
Like that. Drop table loans. So if I execute like that, so I go and refresh here. So you just go on tables. We no longer have table loans. We are now left with account details, personal details. We have deleted our table loans. Okay, so I'm going to recreate it. So for you to comment, or you just put to my spaces like that. That's how you comment. So a comment, it won't be executed. It will be written. It will be just read as a comment, not as a command. So in this case, even if I run this whole query page, this one will be read as a comment. The drop option will not be executed. Okay, so I'm going to recreate this table loans, since I want to use it. Okay, so if I go and refresh, table loans is now appearing. I hope you are all understanding. Okay, so we move on to the next command, which is the truncate. So you just write truncate table. Let me just put here. Truncate table loan. Okay, so I'm also going to put a comment on this one. Okay, truncate will only work when you are clearing the values that you have entered in your table. Let's say I've got 10 loans, and then if I use the truncate command, it's going to clear all my loans. So I'm going to use this command after I've entered my values. So for now, I just wrote it, but we just put it as a comment here, and then I'll show you after I've written something in table loans. So I'm done with the DDL commands. We'll move on to the DML commands. So on DML commands, we'll start with select into. So select into will be like feeding tuples or objects into our tables. Okay, so we'll start with the personal details table. So in personal details, you'll be writing the personal details of each client in full. Like every attribute has to have a value. So in our case, for the default ones, maybe that's only when you can omit putting values. So let me just demonstrate how you do it. So you just write insert into, okay, insert into, then you specify the table name you want to insert your details. So in our case, we're inserting in personal details. We're inserting in personal details right here. And then you open your brackets. Then you write the attributes that you have in the order that you want to write your values. So in our case, for us to avoid scrolling down, you just open personal details table here, and then you open on columns. So you have your columns right here in the left corner, so it will be easy for you to enter, unlike whereby you have to go up and down. So for the first one, we've got the national ID. So you write national ID, and then you separate by use of a comma. And also you have to write all right, yes, you specify by a comma. Let's just use that as of now. So we've got the first name underscore name, comma, and the middle name, comma, and we've got the surname, comma, we've got the age, comma, we've got the gender, comma, we've got the phone, and lastly we'll get the email. Okay, so now you now have to enter the values. So you write values and open your bracket. So you're going to write values according to the order that you've written your column names. So the first one will be national ID. So you're going to input national ID on the first one, followed by the first name, the middle name, surname, age, gender, phone number, and the email. So for my first attribute, you write the values in quotes. So the first one, let me just use 1 1 1 2 3 4 5. It's alphanumeric, so I can actually use my values 3 1 1 like that, and then I close, then I put a comma. So this means for my first one, I've got this national ID. That's the national ID. And then first name also in quotes, you write Nyasha, comma, middle name Roslyn. Okay, I forgot to put quotes here. So everything is written in quotes except for the one for the integers. So everything that you have written under varchar or as a string, yeah, you write you put them in quotes. Manyao, comma, then age 25, gender female, phone number. So my phone number, I think I had entered it using varchar, so I'll write it in quotes. Then the email, let me just say Nyasha at gmail.com, and then I close my quotes, and then you close your bracket, and then you put a comma for the next record. So this is a complete record. So is the first personal record I've written for under personal details. So it's like the first one. So for the next one, you open another bracket and you write another value. So I had written these values before, right? I've written them down so that I can save time. So let me just paste them where they are. It's just the same. It's just written these ones 10 times, so I might waste your time. So let me just copy where they are. Okay, so I've got 10 records here. So after each record, you put a comma. So let me address where they are. Okay, supposed to put a comma, not semicolons here. Okay, so there's 10 records. So I've made an example for, let's say, well, let's go on 44. So on 44, the ID number is 555M55. The name is Agnes. She doesn't have a middle name. So by default, it's just going to be saved as an empty space like that. So you just write empty quotes then for the surname and all. So other on other records you can't omit it. It will tell you that a record is missing. You can't save with the missing record since we have stated that it cannot be a null value. Only on middle name, that's where we are allowed to have a null value. Okay, so we're done with that one. So let me put the closing bracket and do I put a closing bracket or just put this one?
Right, you do not have the opening bracket.
Okay, so I just put a semicolon like that. Okay, so let me save these values. Okay, so 10 rows have been affected. So I've added 10 records to my personal details column. So let me also insert into other tables. So the other table is let me scroll the account details table. Insert into account details. I forgot to put it D. Account details. And then you go ahead to check the attributes in your account details. Okay, the columns. So I only have the account number, national ID, and the balance. So it's account number, comma, net ID. So there's an underscore here. And the balance. And then I close my bracket. And then I now insert the values now. I open my bracket and that one. So for my account number, I also write account number for my head 1 2 3 4 5 6. Let's say this is the account number for the first one. Then comma to separate the national ID. So now I'm going to match this thing since we're saying it's a foreign key in this one. So I'm going to take my national ID from the personal details column. So I'm going to match with the first one. So this person's, I will copy. Did I copy everything? Yeah. So this means that the first person, this one, Nyasha Roslino, their account number will be this one. It's referencing to that table, so you have to link the details that you are using. And then the balance, yeah, let me just say she's got 2,000 in her account, and I close my bracket. So the first record will be initiated. Then you open another one, and let's just say account number is like that. and comma to separate. So the second one, Tanaka, this is the record for Tanaka I'm creating in terms of the bank details. So for Tanaka I'm copying again like that and putting in quotes, and let's say Tanaka has got 15,000 in his account. Okay, so this is how you insert. So let me just take the records that I had written down for benefit of time. Okay, so let me just take the remaining 8 ones. You're supposed to put a comma at the end, not semicolon, so let me just correct here. Okay, since this is the last record, you don't put a comma, you place the semicolon. Yeah. So these are all my 10 accounts with their account number from the person, the account number and the national ID reference being referenced from the primary table, which is our personal details table. So and this one, let me just execute. Okay, it's fine. Okay, so the message 10 rows have been affected. Okay, so we are done with the personal details table, and now we go to the last table. So we say insert into loans, into table loans, into loans, yeah, then open bracket. So we check again in the table loans to see our columns. Where is table loans? Okay, so table loans, we've got the ID, we've got the loan ID, yeah, loan ID, we've got the account number, we've got the amount borrowed, the interest, yeah, and the outstanding balance. Outstanding balance. So these are our attributes, and now we're inserting values into each of the columns. So on loan ID, okay, since this one we are auto incrementing it, there's really no need of writing it, since the system is the one that is going to auto generate this. So we can just remove it from this part to be auto generated by our system. So we'll start here with the account number. So account number, we're taking it from this. We're referencing it from the bank account details. So we've got this account number and then comma, the amount borrowed. Let's say I've borrowed 20,000, 1, 2, 3, and the interest I have paid so far, let's say I've paid 5,000 interest. Then my outstanding balance, let me just say I'm left with 11, because I could be paying only the interest and not really fulfilling the what do you call it, the principal amount. So one can just pay the interest and later on pay the the principal. So it's not really like interest minus the amount borrowed. You see the outstanding balance for that time. So I'm just putting in the amount there. Okay, so this is the second account, for the second account number. So let's say that one has borrowed 30,000 from the bank, and the interest that has been paid so far is maybe 15 is too much, 10, 1, 2, 3. And also amounts due to be paid, let me just say it's due to pay 11. Okay, so that's how you insert. So let me put a comma after this value and after this this tuple. Okay, so let me just copy from my list I have entered from before, since I've, for the benefit of time, copy. Okay, so let me remove the comma here. Comma, I want to remove on that side. Okay, last record, that's where you put the semicolon. So these are all my 10 records, and the amount they've borrowed, the interest they have paid so far, and the outstanding as of today. Okay, so I can execute here. Yeah, it has successfully executed. So 10 rows have been affected. Okay, so in order to see if my tables have the data I've been using, that's when you use the select. So the second command on DML, we've got the select. So you just say select. So in this case, we don't want to use conditions. We just want to see all the data that's in the, so all is symbolized by a star. So if you just write select star then from, so that star means all. So the first one, this we want to select all the data from personal details. From personal details. Okay. Select all from personal details like that. So if I just say execute, let me try to put this down so that you can see clearly. I put this down or up. Okay, so this is the data I have been putting all along. So we've got this one. So where you're seeing where there are blank spaces, they don't have middle names. So default Jedu it's blank, that's why it's like blank like that. So these are all the names that I have inputted, their emails, phone number, all their details. So if I want to see again data for, you want to see data from what's the other table we have, from loans. You want to check all the people that have loans, you just say select all from loans and then you execute, and then you see this, these are the people that have got loans. And the first column here, loan ID, which has been auto incremented. So if you just select, maybe if you write a query referencing loan ID 4, it will extract this loan ID number 4. So loan ID 4, it will have the account number, then the amount borrowed, the interest, and the outstanding balance. So if you want to dig deeper to see the names or the personal details of this person, you now use the account number. to find the person in the personal details. So that's where we're gonna use the joins and the conditions. So Derek will take you through that. Okay. So let me see another table that we created to see if all records have been affected. So from bank, last one is bank details. So from bank details, what happened? After I wrote the wrong account details, not bank details. That's why it's not returning anything. It's account details. Okay, so the account details, we've got the account numbers, their national ID, and the balance for each. So this is what we've been doing all along. We've been creating database, the tables, and inserting values into each table. So let's go on update. So we now have these tables and data. So let's say now a person comes to our bank and maybe has got wants to change their surname. Maybe there was a she and is now married and wants to change their account details to a new surname. So you just write the update query to update one record for that particular tuple in a table. So you just write it like this. You say update. Okay, how do I put this down? Okay, let me check something. Update personal details. So you want to update, you write the table name. So the table name is personal details. So in personal details, what you want to do is to change the surname of a particular tuple. So you just say set surname. So the column name, where am I writing? The column name is surname. That's when you want to effect the change. Surname, like that. Surname is equal to, so the one that you want to set it to. So let's say Nyasha, the first one. Alright, so for my first record, it's this one, Nyasha Roslyn Manyao. So let's say Nyasha Roslyn Manyao is now married. Maybe it's now using Tafumani, So we're setting set surname Tafumani where, so this is now a condition, right? So if you just say set surname, it's going to change every surname in the column surname to Tafumani. So we don't want that. We just want the change to be effected on one particular tuple. So that's where you have to put a condition there. So you're just saying where, so you find a unique identifier. So in our case, we said the primary key here is the ID. So the ID is going to act as the primary key to identify the tuple iri rakanzi Nyasha Manyawe. So we use this ID number. So we're going to say when niche ID, what I think it in net, when net ID equal to, then we paste that national ID and then we execute. Okay, I didn't put another, okay, like this. So I hope you understand. By saying update in the personal details, ndoma tukuda ku update a record. So set surname Tafmani. This is the new surname, not the old one. The new surname that you are effecting away takutsvaga on a particular record. So it's a condition yatikuda kuti in national ID, in a number yakati, that's where we're gonna change our surname to Tafmani. So if you execute like this, okay, so let me put this down, pull it up to see. Okay, so up. So we check the last one. So it's saying it has been affected, one merged, one changed. So we've managed to change. So if you want to see, we can now copy the select. Okay, select all from personal details. So if we execute this last one, so we check if a national ID in a 111 in a 11 in Nyasha Roslyn, it's now Tafmani. So I hope you get it. Okay, if you have questions, you should ask while this I'm still on that. Okay, so I'm done with the update. So the next one, let's use the delete. Okay, so a delete is like you are deleting a particular record from the system. So you use delete the personal, some personal, from personal details. How do I remove this thing? Now do I have space? Okay. I'm trying to compress this so that I can have more space here. Okay, so we're saying delete personal details. Where, so this condition, mind you, like it's now specifying on what you want to delete. So in this case, we just want to delete a record. Let's say we want to delete this one, the 1010, the last one. So we use our unique identifier for that record. So in this case, we use the national ID. So we just say delete record from the national ID, when national ID is equal to 10 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1. Hope I'm able to correct it. 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1, like that. Then semicolon. So if we execute it, I've got an error on deleting. What did I do? Why do I have it?
Hi, Nyasha.
Hello.
Can you terminate on the previous command?
This one.
Yeah, just terminate.
So that's why it's not executing. Where niche ID is like that. So if I run this one,
delete from.
ish.
Okay. You want to delete, right? Oh, great.
From, yeah. Delete from personal details where
You
Without a star.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Then I execute, and then I select again, select from personal. Why do I still have it? Oh, it shows the chronology. Did I write it correctly? 1010, or let me just copy. Okay, so I've executed it. One row has been affected, yeah. Okay, so we no longer have that 0, that 1010. Okay, so we have deleted a record. And now let me try to demonstrate on how to delete a record from another table, yet it's a foreign, like trying to delete a record in another table, yet it's a foreign key in another one. I'm not sure if you get what I'm trying to say. We've got a table. Where are my tables? We've got the account details. Then we've got the personal details. So we want to check on the reference of on the referential, to check on our delete on cascade, on what we were trying to say by that. I hope you get what I'm trying to do here. So in a case whereby you want to delete, like from the account details, you want to delete a record there, or maybe from a loan, or maybe you want to alter. Maybe it was an alter. I don't know. Maybe Say will explain better on that one before I confuse you. Okay, so I think I'm done on my
Sorry, which one?
DDL.
Which one? I
On
was
the
attending to something, so I
Okay,
think you can clarify so that I note it down.
okay, on the issue to do with like deleting a record in a secondary table, like maybe you want to delete a loan, yet it's like I'm not sure on how to explain it, but whereby you want to demonstrate on the referential part of it,
Oh, okay, yeah,
on
I
the
got it.
deletion cascade part.
I got it.
Okay, it's fine. Okay, so I think I'm done on the DDL and the DML. We're now moving on to the DCL. So Derek, I think, is going to continue doing that part, and then we'll try to address on some probable questions that might be asked in order to extract the data, that has to do with the explanation on how to do the joins, like extracting some particular details in a tab in this tables, like array joint. So Derek, are you still in?
Hi, Nyasha.
Hello.
Unfortunately, Derek has dropped from the call. He actually gave me a voice call to say that he has lost power and he has no better mobile connectivity where he's at.
Okay, it's okay. So I can continue on the DCL part you wanted to explain in the inner joint. Okay. So let's move on to the ones that you wanted. So we have got the grant and the revoke. So grant is giving access or privilege to the database. Okay, so I haven't prepared much on this one, so I think I'll need a bit of assistance when I'm going off. Okay, so the syntax on grant You just write grant and privilege name. And what? Anyone can assist me who really understands the grant and the revoke. Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I want assistant on the grant part and revoke.
I don't know if it's a wise suggestion. We had really left that part to Derek, and we may not do enough justice because he also failed to send me the updated PowerPoint. So I don't know if they can allow us to maybe reschedule for that part for TCL.
Okay.
Okay, it's fine. So let me just try to answer some probable questions that can be asked when extracting our data. So for example, let's start with question 1. To write a query that extracts customers with outstanding loan balance greater than 10,000. So in this case, we use the select. So select will be selecting from the personal loans table. That's where we want our customers to come from, right? And okay, let me just do the change order pass so that it becomes clean. So it says select. Okay, let me just write the question down so that when someone wants to follow, we'll know what we were trying to do. Okay, so I hope this is now a comment. So the first one is to write a query that is to extract a customer with outstanding loan balance greater than 10,000. So you say select. Okay, so we're saying to from the personal details table. So it's select personal select from personal details dot. So we use dot to specify on the columns that we want to extract. So in this case, since we want a customer, we're interested in the name and the surname, and probably the name and the surname mostly from the personal details column. So we've got the first F name, comma, and surname. Select from first name, surname. Okay, so we keep on writing personal details. Okay. So personal details dot first name. Then you say comma, personal details dot surname. Then phone number, outstanding balance. So first name it is. Okay, let me just copy this query here and then I'll explain it. Okay, so it's written like this. You say select personal details, we want the first name. So from personal details, we want the surname. From personal details, we want the phone number. Then we go on to from the loans. From the loan table, we want the outstanding balance. So this is what we want, right? But let me just put like this. So I am at table the columns that we're interested in show our tables. So in this case study, we've got the first name, the surname, the phone number, and the outstanding balance. Then we say from the bank details equal joiner, like the inner join that we're gonna use equal joinana the account details. Then on personal details we write, okay, so on here let me put a panaba so that it doesn't go scattered like that. Okay. Okay, so I've tried to so that we don't overlap to the next side. Okay, so when we say inner joint, like we are saying, since we've been writing my foreign keys, I could try to show a relationship between the tables. So in our case, Chukuchaka, from customer we get the details from the personal details. The loans we get them from the loan details table. So we've got two tables here which we were trying to join. So in order to get my personal details, we're going to get them from the personal details. That's the first part here, which is being joined by the account details table. From the account details table, we get the account number. Then from the account number, that's when we're going to get a loan associated to that account number. Then that's where the condition, we now find the condition yedu outstanding balance yedu should be greater than 5,000. So firstly, all this thing we wrote on top here, from starting from this part to this part, we're trying to join in our three tables. I hope you get what I'm trying to say. So if we execute here, outstanding balance, okay, that's how I wrote it, right? I think it's just on the wording part. Outstanding balance, yeah, written ball. Okay, let me correct also on here, balance, personal details, balance, account details, account number. Where is account number? So it's just different wording from the one year's read. I just copied the P account number. So this is how I written it. Okay, let me just see to check if we've got the same wording. Personal details, loans, outstanding balance, personal details, account details, like here. May you switch on the light. Account number. So I think it's now the same, yeah. Okay. So these are the people with loans that are outstanding balance which are greater than 5,000. So this was just an example to illustrate how you can extract data from this database. So you might be given many scenarios, so you just have to know on how to join your tables and write the condition properly. Okay, so I think I'm done. Do I have to write another example, or for today we're okay? Hello?
Yeah, I think you need to get the response from class members.
Okay, class members, do you all understand? We're not getting you, just getting feedback.
Yeah, you can type your response or your contribution or your question. I think sound is not coming clear from your side.
Yes. And so far it's clear. Okay, thank you guys. So I think I have done my best to try to explain. I think the doc will explain more tomorrow. So thank you. Are there any other questions from you, sir?
Alright, I don't think I have much, but I just need to do some moderations on your slideshow and on your some of the statements that you were giving us, which I think needs to be corrected, and some few questions that I think you as a group you can actually respond to. Alright, there's a slide where you talked about drop SQL statement.
Drop.
Yes. All right. Let's not get back to that statement, but let's just try to answer the following question.
Okay.
By answering this question, we'll clear anything that people might have taken from the presenter, which I think is not exactly what it's supposed to be. What is the difference between delete and drop?
Well, drop you'll be deleting the column.
Perfect. Wait.
If you say drop.
Wait.
Uh-huh.
Thank you very much for repeating the same statement that was said when the presenter was on that slide.
Okay.
You said dropping is deleting.
Removing.
No. Okay, go ahead. Maybe you can mold the statement as you go.
From my understanding, I think when you dropping a table, like you'll be removing it from the database.
What is it that you'll be removing?
The whole column.
That's an understatement that I don't like from you. Yes.
Hi, Nyasha.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know. Maybe if I can come in. Drop. We usually say drop table, and we are actually deleting the whole table from the database.
Okay.
And we don't specify columns or anything. We are like getting rid of the table, so we are in a way, we are deleting the whole table and its content, the table and its content.
All right, I am getting you. Well, I think you have moved a bit in the correct direction. I guess the answer is going to be clear as you answer the following question.
Okay.
Right. What is the difference between an attribute and an object when it comes to databases?
Okay, from my understanding,
The difference between an attribute,
yes,
and an object.
Yes.
Okay, Nyasha, you can go ahead. Sorry.
I think the attributes will be referring to the, let's say, the columns, or let's say the table name, like the, what can I say, my columns. Let's say for our example, we've got the table, the personal details. So the attributes we have, they are the national ID, the first name, and the last name, etc. Those are the attributes of our table.
And then the object?
And the objects will be referring to the values that fall under those attributes. The entities, or maybe the records, or maybe something like that.
Okay, maybe GF, you can give your contributions. Thank you very much, Nyasha. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think I'll go along in the same direction as her, but I will also say that the database table can also be considered as an object.
All right. The only thing that I'm going against the both of you is you are agreeing, but Mr. GF is giving a correct answer. But he is agreeing with something which I think needs to be panel-beated. Anyway, all right. An object, a database object includes what can I say? All right, an attribute. When we talk about, let me take you back before I take you to another level. When we talk of databases, we are referring to a collection of objects, right? When we are referring to a collection of objects, the objects might be plates, the objects might be computers, the objects might be people, the objects might be animals, the objects might be vehicles, right? Those are the objects. In real world, those are the objects, right? So when we talk about objects, each and every object has got some properties. But before we get to properties, let's talk about the object itself. I've said there is an object, right, which I referred to as a vehicle. And that is an object. That's an entity. That's an entity. So it being an entity, that's a table. So whenever I'm referring to a database object, I'm referring to something that you can actually refer to in the real world as an object or as an entity. So an entity is a table, is an object.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? Then
Yes.
let's now talk about an object. For example, let's just say a vehicle. Can you give me the properties of a vehicle?
It's a model.
No, wait. A vehicle has got color. Oh, that's correct. That's correct, Nyasha. Sorry. A vehicle has got color. A vehicle has got model. A vehicle has got make. A vehicle has got a number plate. All those are the properties of an object. The things, the terms that defines an object. And unoona murume murefu akamira pakati kana kuti ndinoona murume murefu mutema. Those are the properties. You are defining an object. So when you are defining any object, what you are doing here is you are now stating the attributes which are now columns in a table. Are you getting me correct here?
Yes.
Right. So you now understand what objects are, what columns are, what attributes are. So attributes, these are the columns, these are the properties in an OOP program, maybe in Java, C++, or C. These properties are the ones that we are calling variables. And in this case, we are also calling these attributes as variables in other terms. So each variable has got a data type. So when we talk about data type, that's where we were saying this is a varchar, this is an int, this is a character, and so forth and so forth. And in other databases, in other database systems, you find that we may not have a varchar, but we may have string, we may have text and long text, depending on the database that you will be using. So that's a property, that's an object, that's the variable. I think I gave you a proper example which can actually lead you to a proper understanding. And I liked one thing from this presentation. I never got such a good practical presentation from a lady ever before. And you know, originality actually coming out, whether you have a script right with you, at least you showed us that you are capable of doing this, even if you are given this job to be a database administrator. You can actually work with these objects and items that we are discussing here. I'm happy with that, and I want to thank the group for giving this lady a chance to do this. If you are the one who volunteered to do the presentation practically like this, then let me give you this round of applause.
Thank
did
you.
it very well. I normally observe ladies facing challenges with practicals, but I'm happy to have one who actually confront or challenges or challenge these practical items. Thank you very much. I think, let me just look at my notepad here. All right. When you started your practical, can you give us the procedure that you took to get to this page on your MySQL Workbench?
After I've downloaded.
Right. That's one stage. So we went from nothing to Workbench.
Sorry, I didn't get you. I didn't get the last part.
Right. I'm saying, can you give us the procedure that is required for someone to set up the database and this RDBMS MySQL?
Okay, there's a link. I'm going to share. Okay, it's from. I'm not sure if I've got it on the slide, but there's a link that I used.
Okay.
It has like the link on how to download the Workbench.
All right. I'm saying you downloaded it. After downloading,
So after I download, okay. After I download,
you download what and do what? Which one first? And after that, what did you do?
nhasi handichazivi process yese, but
All right. Okay. Let me help
ndaingofollowa
you.
masteps. I have the tutorial yachona inongokuratidza kuti after apa do this and do this and do this, and then ndakabva ndangopedza pachangoita setup yeka, then kuzoshandisa I just typed search Workbench, then it appears, and then over
It's
open
okay.
as an administrator.
All right. It's okay. Let me help you on that one. And if people follows my channel, you find that the procedures are there. But let me just give you the procedure. You download my SQL database, and then you download Workbench as the second item to be installed. So you first install the SQL database, and then from SQL community database you install MySQL Workbench. The moment you finish installing MySQL Workbench, it will prompt you to do the setup, where you will be asked to put the username, the port number, the password, and so on and so on. But you just follow the prompt. Then after that you run those files. Once you run, you are done with your setup. Then you then open Workbench. Once you open Workbench, you can then follow the video that I'm going to upload, done by Nyasha Manyau. And this is the content of the video is part of this lecture. So that's what you're going to have, and I think you're going to follow with easy. Any contributions or any questions for this group, or for me, or for the class?
How is it?
Yes, I'm good.
Good. I just wanted to find out. I noticed from the way we actually, from the way Nyasha and then the characters, especially when we were dealing with virtual, should we be specific in terms of the values? Maybe taking into consideration, for example, the ID number, probably it has got something between that is less than 20 values. I'm thinking by assigning the space occupied by one particular record, it then is an influence on the space taken up by the database in our space. So should we just general, or we can then be specific? I mean, we can state a particular value that can be of space that can be taken up by the record.
Oh, okay. You are saying, let me try to rephrase your question. If I'm correct, please. If I'm not correct, please correct me. You are asking, if we have a varchar and the value that I'm going to put inside the brackets, it's specifying the number of characters that the maximum number of characters that are allowed. Is it mandatory? Is that the question?
Not mandatory.
Sorry?
I'm asking, not necessarily that it's mandatory, because definitely we have what I'm asking is, value that we place in there, does it have any impact on that the record?
All right, sound is breaking there, but I think I got you now. Yes, it has got an impact on the space that is going to be assigned the data on the database. It is with
Okay.
an impact, because you know it's more like I'm assuming I'm telling someone to say, please reserve 3 rooms for me, reserve at least three
Okay.
rooms for me. Then I can go there and choose only two. I can go and choose only one. I can go and use all the three. So I've reserved the space that I want to occupy.
Okay. All right. Which makes it to say where you particularly know the number of values if a card that was then get X-Man and
Yeah,
so you don't
your sound is not that clear, but it's done for the sake of security and for database performance and efficiency, because we don't want to uh, request for more space if we cannot use all of the space. Number two, we want to say, for example, you know, when you are dealing with database, there is SQL injection, which is a threat to our data in a database. So we want to avoid people who write scripts. For example, let me say you have a form, a web form, which is accepting a value, and you allow it to accept 100 characters or 1000 characters. Someone can actually write a code in that field, and that code can actually do some manipulation to the data, and maybe can fetch the data or can do anything that is malicious to our database. So that's why we limit, that's why we specify the number of characters that we need per attribute or per variable.
okay. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, contributions? Please, group number 6, show up so that you do your presentation. I don't want to finish this weekend without all presentations assessments. Group number 6, please show up so that you do your presentation. If you fail to do it today,
Hello, sir.
yes.
We are group number 6.
All right. So
So,
you can present. You can start to do your presentation right now.
okay. So, Chinomo Wonga is supposed to be sharing his screen so that I can use his slides. I'm actually using a mobile phone.
Yes, please do some necessary communication with him so that you start your presentation.
Okay. Mm,
Evening, sir.
Hello, brother.
How are you this evening, sir?
I am okay. I hope you're okay as well.
I'm okay. I just want to. I'm sharing the screen like what Chinomrombet is saying. So maybe if you could just could give me the instructions. I'm on the arrow now. I've said show your
Present
full
now.
screen, but the share now is I think it's grayed out now. I don't know if you could assist me with that.
It's grayed out.
Yeah, the share. So I said share entire screen. Then the option to share has been grayed out. I don't know what's happening with my. If there's something with my. Okay, let me see what I can do here.
You can use the share window.
Okay, which one is that? Sorry.
You just click on share and then use a window. The second option, not entire screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Or share a window. Okay, thank you for that.